Today, we saw stocks come crashing down. S&P 500 smashing that ABC target to the downside. Now the question is, have stocks finally bottomed? We come over and look at the earnings calendar this morning before the opening bell. We had Home Depot out with earnings. When we come over and look at Home Depot, yikes, nasty gap on the way down. Home Depot closing down almost 6% on this session. Now, with Home Depot on the move down, we also saw the volatility index spiking up, making it right up here to about 25.82. Now, with the VIX, we talked about this today on the live stream. We come over and we look at the GEX levels. One of the questions I asked the chat was, will the VIX be able to spike all the way up to the next GEX level at about 30? Well, we can see right here, we saw the GEX level was at 25, and the VIX was unable to get above the 25 strike price, and then it ultimately started to come back lower. However, when we come over and look at how the indices fared across the board today, the Dow was down 498 points. The NASDAQ was down 275 points. S&P 500 down 55 points, with the Russell 2000 being up 0.70. So the Russell 2000 was the only one of the four indices actually green. And then when we come over and look at advancing issues versus declining, we had 55.6% of issues advancing on the day. So that means we had more stocks going up than what we had going down. And that is even more evident when we come over and look at the sectors. We can see we had 5 sectors in the red, but 2 of them were the real big laggers out there: consumer cyclicals and technology, and then utilities, industrials, and financials. However, energy was the leader out there. Now, if we come over real quick and we take a look at the heat map and we look at the Mag 7 stocks, Nvidia down 2.8%, Apple basically break even, Microsoft down 2.7, Meta down 0.7, Google down 0.26, Amazon down a whopping 4.43%, and Tesla down 1.88%. Now, there was a little bit of good news out there today. We saw factory orders, which came out at 10, actually showed a little bit of a rebound. You can see right here, finally, after 2 months, after the past 2 readings of being in the red, a nice little bump on the way up. Now, one of the things I found kind of ironic this morning, somebody brought it up during the chat. Look at the weekly unemployment claims. We can see they dropped them at 3:10 in the morning. 3:10, kind of an odd time. Then we come over and look at this article right here. U.S. jobless benefits rolls in mid-October were the highest since August, Labor Department says. So this is going to be a little bit problematic. And then we couple that with this article right here. ADP employment reports signals rebound in labor market, claims confirm resilience. However, look right here at this chart. We can see we are still in the red for the ADP weekly employment data. Then when we scroll down real quick to show another chart, but extrapolating some simple math, that implies a monthly drop of 10,000 jobs. So now we know why they haven't been wanting to release the NFP report. And then this morning, there are a lot of outages out there. You might have noticed X wasn't working, ChatGPT, and other websites, and that all had to do with Cloudflare being down. Now, Cloudflare, a lot of websites actually run on that. For instance, look over here at Apex. Right now, it may look like you can actually get on the website, but you cannot. If you go try to purchase an account, the website is currently down. I go to login, and it'll just simply spin. Now, and that may also be in part due to Apex's massive sale they just came out with, where you get 80% off all your accounts and a $40 activation fee. Now, if you guys do want to check out Apex, there's a link in the description box down below. Use promo code Mike at checkout. Now, with the VIX spiking up, we come over and look at the dollar index. Dollar index firming up a little bit today as well. And then we come over and look at the precious metal gold. Gold also was up. Gold went down last night, kind of forming a hammerish looking candle. Now, with all the turmoil out there in the markets, what are the probabilities that the Fed will be cutting rates out here in December? We see right now the market's priced in a 51.1% chance that Jay Powell and company will be cutting rates. However, that's not very convincing. If we see inflation start to pick up, that's going to be even more problematic. Now, we come over and look at the fear and greed index. We are sitting at 11, and earlier on the live stream, we've seen this actually drop all the way down to 9 or so. Now, if we come over and look at the SPY real quick, notice today we came right down to the ABC pattern that we've been tracking, and we have a little bit of a wick on bottom of that candle. Now, the MACD indicator on the daily chart is still bearish. It looks like we're about to cross below the zero line. And we look at some of the GEX levels, like we talked about in yesterday's video, that 660 price point was very, very important. We can see today, we actually spiked a little bit below it. We made it all the way down to 655, and then the market rejected back up. And something I want to bring to your guys' attention, if you're looking for the SPY to potentially go lower, let's look at where some of those levels could be. We can see we have a lot of GEX right here at 660, But then the next real levels really come in between 650, 645, and even 640. And if we couple that to how their CTA's positioning for this, notice they're positioning to the downside, aka there could still be more pressure up ahead. Now the 650 price point would be right around the 127 extension. However, look right down here. We have a high volume node right around 644-ish or so. And then 640 would be just below that in the next minus development area. But the question is, are we going to be able to go ahead and have a little bit of a retracement on the way up? If we do, I like this high volume node right up here, 672. And we look at this on the 4-hour chart. What do we have going on? MACD indicator still looks horrible at this moment. We drop down, look at the 30-minute chart, and look at what we have going on. It's going to be very interesting to see, do we tomorrow maybe break that back down below the lows of today and then set up some type of MACD divergence? We can see we're closing right near value area lows. So tomorrow, if we're trading below 660, I want to look for the market to come back down towards the lows from today. Then I want to look for 650, 645, and even 640 price points to the downside. Now, we come over and look at the futures markets real quick. We start off looking at the 4-hour chart, and this is something we've been tracking for quite some time on the live stream. We have an ABC pattern down here at 65.79. Well, today we actually had a low of 65.94. So we're getting close, however, not close enough to go ahead and complete that pattern. We are still below last week's value area low. So from a weekly perspective, the path of least resistance is still lower. Then we come over real quick and we look at the daily profiles on the 30-minute chart. And could this be a potential inverse head and shoulders? Left shoulder, head, maybe a right shoulder over here. Well, if I'm a betting man, I think we are going to actually run those lows and actually go ahead and fill that ABC pattern that we just spoke about right over here off the 4-hour time frame. And then we'll see if the market wants to turn and go back up. Now, this morning on the live stream, we're looking at some critical levels. This morning, I said when we're below this put support, I want to look for the market to come down to the 1-day min level, which is an options level. And then when we were down here this morning on the live stream, I said I do not want to get long unless we get back above that level. Then we could look to play that structure breakdown. Well, the market went ripping all the way up towards that level, actually had a little ABC pattern up, and then at the end of the day we came back down. And I think that's very telling that at the end of the day, instead of ripping on up, the market came back down. Now when we come over and look at the QQQs, this is going to be a little bit different than what we talked about with the SPY. Yes, we have a little bit of a buying tail on the bottom of the candle, a little bit of a selling tail on top, but notice the ABC pattern down here is at 586.11. We never made it all the way down there, and the MACD indicator on the daily chart looks like it's still accelerating on the downside. Now, if we are able to break below that ABC pattern, I would want to turn my attention towards 579 or so, that high volume node. You can see when we come over and look at the options data, right around 590 or so, we had a high GEX level. So it's no surprise that the market defended it and tried to run back up. But if we start breaking 590, it's going to open the door right down to 586-ish or so. And that would correlate right with go ahead and completing the ABC pattern to the downside. Now, what could be the catalyst out here for tomorrow? It's really going to be a couple different things. One, we look at the economic calendar, and tomorrow, well, it's all going to be about Jay Powell at the FOMC meeting minutes. And I say it's going to be all about Jay Powell. He's not going to be speaking, but maybe we'll learn something that Jay Powell did not talk about at the press conference during the FOMC statement. And then tomorrow after the bell, the king of AI, Nvidia, is going to come out with earnings. Now, I do think the earnings for Nvidia will probably beat, but I kind of have a sneaky suspicion, even when Nvidia beats, I think it may get a negative reaction out here in the stock market. And with Nvidia being such a high weighting of the indices, we look at the chart pattern in Nvidia, and if Nvidia starts to break this low out here at 178.98, watch out, it's probably going to flush lower all the way down toward the ABC target at 167.10. And if that occurs, it'll probably be enough to push the Qs all the way down. So maybe tomorrow after the bell, we see a little bit of weakness. But if Nvidia is going to be the driving force for the NASDAQ to make it down there, we might have to wait another day or so. We look over here on the 4-hour chart. MACD looks horrible, but we are below the zero line. So to think that we can't get a bounce down around these areas, I think would be foolish at the same time. Over here on the 30-minute chart, similar to the S&P, we come back down. I'm going to be very interested to see, does the MACD indicator make a new low? If not, that could set up a MACD divergence play, and that could set up a bounce out here in the markets. Now, a lot of people are freaking out saying, oh my goodness, why are the markets going down? But in all reality, if we look from all-time highs right down there to the low, we've only dropped 7%. 10% corrections are normal. That normally will occur every 12 to 18 months. So to think that we can't drop another 3% or so, I think would also be foolish. Now, when we come over look at the NASDAQ on the 4-hour chart real quick, what do we have right down here? We have an ABC target. I talked about this on the live stream. I did not think we'd make it all the way down there today, 24,251. However, I do think it's still a very viable target, and we'll see if we get more selling on top of more selling. So tonight during Asia, do they start to sell again? And tomorrow during London, because we could see the market come all the way down there, hitting that target, and then we'll see if we start to bounce. Now, below that ABC target, we also have a point of control at 24,073. Now, I come over look at the 30-minute charts with the daily volume profiles. Notice today, all right, essentially, what do? Kind of a little chopping around effect. Could be a head and shoulders, left shoulder, head, right shoulder, right over here. We start coming much lower. We get below these candle bodies over here. I'll invalidate this as a potential inverse head and shoulders pattern. And I'm still in the camp where I think we're going to come down, run the lows from today, and start working on the daily ABC patterns along with the 4-hour patterns in the futures markets. However, one thing to note, today, we were unable to take out the P point, and we saw this point of control left behind above us, 25,141. If we zoom this chart out a little bit, do we have any untested point of controls below us? We can see 23,879, 23,730. At this point, that seems miles and miles away. However, let's not get too complacent. We can see that value area low right now, we're barely right below that, 24,564.75. As long as we are below value area low tonight, I want to look to retarget down here by these lows. And as we go ahead and break those lows, that's where I want to turn my attentions down here towards 24,251 to see if we can finally complete the ABC pattern. And then once that occurs, can we get some type of bounce up, maybe playing up towards some of the high volume areas? And then from that point on, we'll see if the bulls can build on that or if the bears continue to dominate the markets. Now, if you guys like to trade with micro futures, then you want to watch this next video right here to see which prop firm is best for you.